The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
It is really all falling off the walls for Donald Trump and the growing body of knowledge about contact with Russian officials during the presidential campaign. And before I jump into any of this, let me reset the stage for you. Have any of the allegations or claims made about Donald Trump and Russia been found to be untrue so far? I'm having a hard time thinking of any. Russia hacked to help Trump win. We know now that that is indeed the case. Michael Flynn talked sanctions with the Russian ambassador before being confirmed as the national security advisor. That ended up being true. Trump had a plan to remove sanctions on Russia. The New York Times story I told you about yesterday said, indeed, that is true, that Michael Cohen, Trump's personal lawyer, hand-delivered it to former national security advisor Michael Flynn. The Russian dossier, Trump said it didn't exist. It's been confirmed that it does. Trump said the contents are all fake. It's now been confirmed that some of the contents are true. The Trump team and Russian officials were indeed in touch during the lead up to the election. That's now been confirmed true by intercepted communications from U.S. agencies. Some people are writing to me saying, but David, that's just one source. And like Donald Trump, I also don't trust our own intelligence agencies. What about Russian sources confirming this? And we do indeed have that as well. Donald Trump's claims have been, nobody on my team had any contact with Russian authorities during the campaign. Kremlin officials have admitted that they were in touch with members of Donald Trump's staff. He's repeatedly denied it. And we know, indeed, that it is true. 2 days after Donald Trump's election victory, the Russian deputy foreign minister, Sergei Ryabkov, I'm not exactly sure how the last name is pronounced, said that the Russian government had been in touch with Trump's advisors during the campaign. And now, earlier this month, the Russian ambassador to the U.S. said, I was in frequent contact during the campaign with Michael Flynn. We learned, of course, in the forced resignation of Michael Flynn, that they were in touch after Election Day, but before Inauguration Day, Pat. And now that same Russian ambassador, it's no longer just U.S. intelligence, says, oh, yeah, we were in touch before the election.
I mean, it seems like just about every week now, a new aspect to the story is being confirmed.
Yeah.
And yes, there are many things from this story that he could kind of survive politically, like Russia wanted to help him win the election. Maybe that doesn't fall on him. Or the fact that his team was in contact with Russians. I mean, maybe they weren't aware that they were undercover operatives. But if a bombshell comes out that they were colluding together, he can't survive that.
Right. You're sort of hypothesizing ways in which the letter of this could be true, but it doesn't have wide-ranging political implications. But again, most of those scenarios we know not to be true. And the Russian ambassador to the U.S., Sergei Kislyak, has now said, oh, I was in touch with Michael Flynn. We were speaking on the phone, in person, we would be texting, et cetera, et cetera. Is there any doubt at this point? I mean, the one entity denying this now is the Trump team, which has lied all along. We have U.S. intelligence plus Russian officials saying, yes, they were in touch. We have a resignation that took place, Michael Flynn's, after having lied about his discussions with Russia. I don't know how anybody can doubt this now. And people email me every once in a while, Pat, and they say, listen, David, there's hysteria about Russia. What really matters is the content of what Russia hacked. The hacking at this point is a tiny piece of this. Yes, the hacking that maybe was meant to help Trump win, or maybe you don't believe that and you don't care about how it was leaked, but the contents, that now is such a small piece of this that that's not even really a defense of anything.
The information that was hacked, that was important, but not so much now because we're months removed from the campaign. And yes, I mean, the revelations we got from Hillary Clinton, that was important. But I mean, if they were just playing one side over another, that just goes against the legitimacy of our election.
Would you say at this point that the Russians are lying to us less than Donald Trump is in some sense, at least with regard to this issue? I'm getting the feeling that that's the case.
I mean, I think they're lying just about the same amount. That would be my guess.
Trump has lied publicly about this multiple times. Trump is working very, very hard to push the narrative that the only truth there is what you personally hear from Donald Trump. It's obviously absurd at face value, but what's horrifying and frightening and scary is that many people are believing that and are taking that approach. And this combined with Trump's attacks on media, Trump's like, the media is the enemy of the people. And that's rhetoric that is reminiscent of many authoritarian, pre-dictatorial moments in history of the last couple of hundred years. We could laugh it off, Pat, if it weren't for the fact that so many people are believing this stuff. And then they see media and they're instantly distrustful at the sort of systemic fundamental level. Skepticism, healthy skepticism about what you are getting from corporate media, from any media, is obviously important and a relevant part of media literacy. But jumping on board the Trump train that media is the enemy of the people, you can only believe what I say in the context of much of what he said being debunked as lies. That's very dangerous, and millions of people buy it.
And in the same way you have to be skeptical of the media, you also have to be skeptical of the people in power. And
Right.
Trump is the president of the United States. You have to be, even if you supported him, even if you're a Republican, you have to call it out when you see it.
And a lot of these Trumpists have an internal rationalization, which is, okay, yeah, normal politicians I would distrust, but Trump is different. He's not establishment. He's draining the swamp, blah, blah, blah. Every single one of those campaign talking points has been debunked. Trump filled the swamp. He didn't drain it the day he started announcing who his cabinet picks were going to be. Every single one of these sort of outsider, non-establishment talking points we now know to be untrue. But again, it was effective in priming is the sort of term that's used when you want to influence thought in a less than completely overt way. The Trumpists have been very successfully primed to do exactly what it is that they are doing right now. Donald Trump just finished up his third vacation at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida in 3 weeks. These trips have included some pretty horrible stuff, including that embarrassing public situation, what I like to call the North Korean missile launch dinner debacle, where he just in a patio in front of Mar-a-Lago guests was discussing a recent North Korean missile launch with the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Also, this is a big business benefit for Trump. That's never far behind. This raises Mar-a-Lago's profile. Mar-a-Lago is constantly being mentioned in the media. This is, again, a for-profit club that the Trump family makes money off of being trafficked and frequented by guests. The Washington Post is reporting that these trips to Mar-a-Lago, 3 trips, have cost U.S. taxpayers about $10 million. Okay, that's about $3 million per trip. This includes Coast Guard and other military activation. It includes Secret Service. It includes additional staffing. And then you've also seen Trump's sons take some business-related trips, which required very extensive security on the government dime, meaning taxpayers. This is putting total Trump family travel expenses at $11.3 million in taxpayer money during the first month of the presidency. Context time. This is roughly what President Obama spent on travel for an entire year of his presidency. He was spending about $12.1 million per year of his presidency on travel. Republicans said it was outrageous. Every time he went to Martha's Vineyard, it was a scandal. Every time he went to Hawaii was a scandal. Donald Trump spent as much as Obama was spending in a year, Pat. In 1 month, I'm hearing silence from Republicans.
Yeah, especially after he broke all those campaign promises. I mean, I think he's just kind of learned that he can be a figurehead and delegate out all the responsibility, give it to people like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller. And maybe it's bad in a way because those people could be even more deplorable than he is.
Yeah.
But if you're spending all this money still and traveling around, there's really just no way to justify it if you're not actually doing the work.
No, and maybe he is. I mean, I know the president can work from anywhere and blah, 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 but that's not really what it's about. It's about the fact that Trump himself was critical of Obama for his trips as well. This also, I'm just talking to you about the Trump numbers. Trump and his wife Melania aren't living together. She's living in New York City. And that has cost an additional $15 million so far, which, by the way, is also great for Donald Trump's business, because by having Melania in New York City at Trump Tower, the government is paying millions in rent to the Trump organization to stay at Trump Tower themselves because, hey, Melania is there and we need to be, the first lady needs to have her staff around. So as usual with Trump, the double standards and the contradictions are numerous. Number one, Trump said that he would rarely vacation. He said that multiple times. He would rarely leave the White House as president. That's a contradiction because he's doing it all the time. Okay, so that's a campaign lie. Number two, Trump claims to be an advocate of fiscal conservatism. In theory, obviously that's BS, but he claims to be an advocate of fiscal conservatism. It's not exactly fiscally conservative to spend as much per month as President Obama was spending per year on travel expenses. And layer three is, and we'll start to show you some of the data around this, layer three is that Trump himself previously slammed President Obama for the vacations that he took, okay? So we have one tweet from last year where Donald Trump said taxpayers are paying a fortune for the use of Air Force One on the campaign trail by President Obama and crooked Hillary, a total disgrace. And then also a Trump tweet from 2014 where he said, I say, we cannot continue to let Obama fly around on Air Force One at a cost of millions of dollars a day for the purpose of politics and play. Politics and play. Trump's played about 6 or 7 rounds of golf while down at Mar-a-Lago when he was flown down there on Air Force One. Does that qualify, Pat, as the type of flying around on Air Force One for play that President Obama was slammed for? I think
it's the exact same thing, right?
It's the same thing.
I mean, and Trump has said that he's not going to accept the presidential salary of $400,000. That's a drop in the bucket compared to this. And if he really is a billionaire, he should be able to compensate the American taxpayer for this $11 million just so far in the first month.
Trump said in 2015 to a reporter, I would rarely leave the White House because there's so much work to be done. I would not be a president who took vacations. I would not be a president who takes time off. You don't have time to take time off. Apparently, Donald Trump does. And Trump has also criticized how much golf Obama played. And again, a few days ago, Trump played his 6th round of golf as president, averaging more than a round of golf per week. The White House admitted that they have been misleading the media about how much golf Donald Trump has been playing. All the time, we have not only the hypocrisies and the double standards, but we have the lies and deception from the Trump team. And in the midst of all the travel expenses, Trump's team just put together a budget proposal which would cut money from things like the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the National Endowments for the Arts, for the arts and the humanities, all of these really important programs, including some for low-income individuals like the Legal Services Corporation and AmeriCorps. As Pat said, drops in the bucket. Trump is a walking contradiction. His entire campaign was a lie, and the Republicans are not far behind because they were slamming Obama every time he flew anywhere for a vacation. I've heard no complaints from Republicans about what Trump is doing.
Also, I mean, Donald Trump during his business career was considered to be a branding expert. I mean, This is kind of obvious PR. If you criticize the previous president for playing too much golf and going on too many vacations, you'd think you wouldn't do the same thing, right?
You'd have the PR savvy, if nothing else, even if he has the desire to go play golf, even if he doesn't care about the fact that he's not working when he said he would. You would think that just for the PR benefit and the optics, he would avoid doing this. But Trump is above that. He doesn't care and or doesn't get it. Please take a survey at podsurvey.com/Pacman. That's Pakman, podsurvey.com/Pacman. We're gathering information to hopefully bring on some new advertisers to the David Pakman Show over the next 6 to 12 months. And we need to collect this survey data. So please help us out, podsurvey.com/Pacman. I'm on Twitter at dpacman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. And we'll be right back after this.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Today's new member of the day is Meredith Whistler. Meredith, thank you so much for signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. Members do get the full David Pakman Show every day, commercial free in both audio and video formats. We also do a daily members-only show called The Bonus Show. So if you like the regular show, it follows logically you'd probably like the bonus show. Lots of other great member benefits. Read about it at davidpakman.com/membership. We have a coupon code for a huge discount. I don't mind you using it. It's I voted 17. All one word, all lowercase, I voted 17. And again, we are taking a survey of the audience at podsurvey.com/Pakman. It's very useful to our current and potential advertisers for you to take that survey. It takes mere seconds, really. It's very few questions. I would appreciate you doing that. podsurvey.com/Pakman. Let's get into Hatriot Mail. Here's a reminder about what Hatriot Mail is.
It's like email forwards from your racist grandma on steroids. Hatriot Mail. Written by patriots who hate David Pakman. Because America. And because freedom.
This may be a first, Pat, for Hatriot Mail, which is that we have Shakespeare as a part of Hatriot Mail, in a way. Obviously, there's a broader overarching theme, which is anti-Semitism, and that is sort of served by the inclusion of Shakespeare. What am I talking about? Take a listen to this.
Isn't David Pakman just another obnoxious kike Jew? Never heard of him before. Dirty Shylock? Ha ha! David Pakman, you're an idiot. I hope Israel becomes a multicultural hole too. Ha ha! What's the plan now, Jew man?
So, relatively short, but still 3 grammar and spelling errors that I saw. Shylock, okay? Shylock is a Jewish character from Shakespeare. And in the midst of anti-intellectualism, you somehow got the low information, patriotic crowd interested in something that could maybe be considered a bit of culture, but really it was just a way to insult Jews. So I guess we figured out Hatriots may overlap with Shakespeare if it will suit their anti-Semitic priorities.
I mean, if you wanted to reference Shakespeare to seem esteemed, it was kind of overshadowed because he used the wrong your.
Yes.
And also he spelt your name incorrectly, so we don't even know if he's talking about you.
That's true. It could be someone who spells their last name Packman, which is certainly not the host of this program. That's absolutely not me. Remember that you can turn Hatriot Mail into something positive. Use the coupon code Hatriot40 at davidpakman.com/membership. That will save you 40%. That's a 4 and a 0. 40% off of the membership of your choice. Let's talk a little bit about coffee. Pat, are you still caffeinating? Is that still happening at this point?
I'm going to have to show the audience.
Oh, you
yes,
have...
look at this. I mean, this is heavy duty right here.
And that's metal, isn't it?
Yeah.
That doesn't transfer...
Or aluminum?
Any metal... Well, aluminum
yeah,
is
aluminum
a type of metal, yeah. Doesn't transfer a metallic taste into your coffee?
Maybe it does, but maybe I like the touch of metallic taste.
Yeah, some people add milk, some people add sugar. Being vegan, you're opting for a little metal.
Right.
Metal is vegan, right? I mean, you can eat metal
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
vegan. It's not an animal product.
Not an animal.
Yeah. Okay, listen, here's the point, though. We have these 2 coffee roasts, and we're going to start giving them away as of today, okay? We have the, starting over here, Progressive Wake Up Call. This is an espresso coffee roast, good for all sorts of espresso machines. And over here, we also have Freedom of the Press coffee roast. This is great for percolators, drip coffee applications, Chemex, French press, etc. What's your preferred drip coffee application? Like, what are you using to make the coffee?
I honestly don't even know. I mean, I use a Keurig. I put those little pods in there, and sometimes I get the plastic ones, but also you can use just regular coffee and pour that in as well.
All right, don't worry, folks. We're going to edit this part out.
Yeah.
Pat didn't say anything about a Keurig. Okay, we're giving away free bags of coffee. Only open to U.S. customers. International shipping is extra. And to get you something that's perishable like coffee in a short period of time, it's really, really expensive. So this is open to U.S. customers. You go to davidpakman.com/freebeans, okay? Free beans, all one word, davidpakman.com/freebeans. With a yearly membership, you will get a free 12-ounce bag of David Pakman Show coffee. If you want the drip coffee, you can have that. If you want the espresso coffee, you can have that. You can also choose your grind size. If you grind your own coffee, you can get it whole bean. If you want it already pre-ground, you can select what kind of a coffee maker you're using, and we will send it to you already ground. Again, the coffee comes from Blue Fire Coffee Roasters in Hopedale, Massachusetts. Patrick Maloney is doing a heck of a job over there. And I mean that seriously, not like when George W. Bush said to Michael Brown, the head of FEMA, that he was doing a heck of a job, Brownie. We actually have a heck of a job being done by Patrick Maloney over at Blue Fire Coffee Roasters. DavidPakman.com/freebeans. You get the membership. We send you a bag of coffee for free shipping, of course, within the United States. Not combinable with other offers, blah, 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 all that stuff. Just do it, though. That's really the message, I guess, from me, Pat, which is who doesn't like coffee these days?
Yeah, I mean, what's holding you back at this point? You get to enjoy all the perks of membership, and you get to be hyped up while you do it.
Yeah, and some people asking if there's plans for a decaf roast at some point. I'm not against it. I have no problem with decaf. I mean, I don't drink caffeine after 3:34 p.m., but right now, it's enough work managing the two roasts that we have. Yeah.
If there was going to be another blend, it would be decaffeinated.
Yes, and there was somebody told me a really funny name that we could have for a decaf roast. I don't remember it. I think it was something like Massachusetts Republican, because some people call Massachusetts Republicans sort of like decaf Republicans.
Yes.
It's something like that. I'm butchering it, but it was something along those lines. Let's talk about yet another suspicious Russian death. We recently did a story about Russian opposition journalist Vladimir Kara-Murza being poisoned. And we also ran down really a stunningly long list of other Russian dissidents who were killed under very weird and suspicious circumstances. And we were alluding to the possibility that all or most of them had not been sort of accidental deaths, and there may have been a relationship between their political views and the Putin government, okay? We've now learned that on U.S. Election Day, Sergei Krivov, an employee of the Russian consulate in New York City, was found dead at his office with blunt trauma head injuries. And his name is just now surfacing for the first time. We're only now learning about this, which is also part of why it is raising the eyebrows of many people. And other consulate employees had originally said that he died from jumping off the roof of the building. But by the time that emergency responders and journalists showed up, the employees said, oh, he died from a heart attack. So the story had sort of changed, at least potentially. The Kremlin is maintaining that he did die of a heart attack. And I guess the idea is, and what the NYPD said, was that he had a heart attack on the roof and fell off the building because of the heart attack, and that's what it is that happened. The NYPD, which is weird in and of itself, the NYPD then closed the case before getting results from the medical examiner, declaring it a natural death, which is less than common. Usually they wait to get more information from the medical examiner, but again, by itself, not necessarily indicative of anything. The body was released the day after his death to an undisclosed recipient. The medical examiner no longer has the body. All right, that's sort of a little odd, but again, we're talking about, a Russian employee, and there may be reasons why that took place. By itself, not indicative of anything in particular. No funeral home in the area has a record of him, but again, okay, we're talking about a Russian individual here. Maybe his remains were sent back to Russia for the funeral. By itself, not indicative of anything, but we've got kind of a growing list of weird circumstances here, don't we?
You add it all up, it gets very suspicious. And I mean, it's especially troubling because we've talked a lot about these mysterious Russian deaths.
Yeah.
But if this one actually occurred in the United States, in New York City on Election Day, where both campaign headquarters were, and there were probably a ton of security, I mean, it's just very interesting.
And it gets even more interesting. Aeroflot, the only airline with direct flights between New York City and Moscow, would not say whether or not they had flown the body back to Russia. Why would they take anything other than a direct flight? The only direct flights available on Aeroflot, but they wouldn't say. Again, by itself, maybe it's just their policy, they don't comment, etc. BuzzFeed requested an incident report from the New York Police Department, and the New York Police Department denied it, saying you didn't include the date, precinct, and location of death. But BuzzFeed's request, they've published it, did include all of those things, and experts and former police officers are saying NYPD almost never withholds these reports from the public. So this is also sort of odd. And a government transparency expert told BuzzFeed the incident report, after an investigation is closed, typically that is releasable It's really weird that they would categorically state that it was rejected. Incident reports are not broadly exempt from public records laws. His name wasn't even released by police until this week, which is why I'm telling you about it now rather than 3 months ago when it happened. State Department and FBI asked to comment. They've declined. Russian media says that he was in charge of relaying secret messages to and from Russia. No one with his name shows up in any public New York City records indicating that he lived there. His residence address listed on his New York City death report doesn't exist. Of course, it doesn't help that the Russian federal government is usually involved in investigating things like this, but a dozen or so, Pat, weird individual little tidbits that by themselves don't really mean anything, but altogether, another weird situation.
And you'd like to hope that our intelligence agencies and entities like the State Department and the New York City Police Department are withholding information because it's part of a larger investigation.
Yeah.
But there's no way to know for sure at this point.
They could say that. Somebody could at some point say, this may be related to an ongoing investigation. Of course, we've heard from the FBI, they don't comment on ongoing investigations, unless, of course, your name's Hillary Clinton and it's like a month before the election. In that case, then you can get 2 letters and a press conference about an ongoing investigation, or even an investigation that's been closed, which is actually even weirder. Discuss this with us on Reddit, davidpakman.com/REDDIT, heading towards 3,000 different viewers and listeners on our Reddit discussion forum. I hope you'll join us there.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
It's great to be joined today by Bill Oglesby, who's an assistant professor at Virginia Commonwealth University's Robertson School of Media and Culture, also the producer and director of GerryRIGGED, Turning Democracy on Its Head, a documentary produced by Community Idea Stations in cooperation with the public interest group One Virginia 2021, which is working on issues of redistricting. Bill, it's so great to have you on. Let's just start at the most basic point, which is when we talk about gerrymandering, what are we talking about?
Gerrymandering is very simply the drawing of political lines for a partisan purpose, usually by the very people who tend to benefit from those lines being drawn that way.
And when we're talking about elections, in a presidential election, gerrymandering is much less relevant than when we look at the makeup of the U.S. House of Representatives. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, of course, in presidential elections, we're dealing with generally a winner-take-all kind of situation in all but 2 states, where the person getting the most votes takes all of the electoral votes. Of course, that the electoral college is another issue. In Maine and Nebraska, they have it the votes distributed according to, as I understand it, the House of Representatives, the House congressional districts. That could be affected by gerrymandering because House districts are. The Senate, of course, the U.S. Senate, not so much either, because you have 2 U.S. senators and they're elected statewide, so there's no lines to be drawn. So gerrymandering is not an issue there. Where we find gerrymandering is really an issue are in the state legislatures and in the U.S. House of Representatives.
And in the documentary, again, Virginia is a big deal when it comes to gerrymandering. It was actually the Virginia governor, Patrick Henry, who was the first to sort of redistrict in his favor, even though the name gerrymandering is actually because of our former governor in Massachusetts, Elbridge Gerry. So talk a little bit about how this started, when it started, and then how it became something that's just so common today.
Yeah, well, of course, that's nice of you to bring that up because that's a big deal here in Virginia. Of course, we're always sort of vying with Massachusetts a little bit for these
things. Should be
things,
Henrymandering, really.
Yes, exactly. Well, and the reason I think it was not called Henrymandering was it didn't work for Patrick Henry. He tried it basically in 1788. What he was trying to do was he actually had a political feud sort of going on with future President James Madison. And so what he did was he redistricted so that James Madison's home would be in the same district with James Monroe, another future president, thinking that that would surely mean that James Madison would lose. Unfortunately for him, it didn't work, and James Madison won anyway. So that's probably why he didn't get quite as much notoriety from Henry Mandering as later Elbridge Gerry in Massachusetts. And I don't know why I think his name was pronounced Gary, and it's gerrymandering usually. But this was in 1812, a few years later, and he drew a district that was said to resemble a salamander. It was so unusual with the lines being drawn, and that's how we came up with the term gerrymandering.
So explain the logistics of it a little bit. I think if you say to someone, well, you can draw the districts in a way that's advantageous for one party or another, it might not be completely self-evident the sort of mathematics and logistics of how that works.
Right. Well, basically, of course, the census is taken every 10 years. And the first year of the decade. So the next one will be, the last one was in 2010, the next one will be in 2020. The year after that, when we have all of the figures from the census, that's when lines are redrawn, because we need to have, as part of the one person, one vote system, we need to have districts that are approximately equal in population. So as the population changes every 10 years, you need to redraw those district lines. And it is generally the state legislature that's drawing those district lines. And so they're drawing it for themselves. They're also drawing it for the House of Representatives. So they can draw the lines in such a way that they benefit one particular party over another. And I do want to emphasize that both parties have been equally guilty of this when they've been in power. It just depends which one is in power at any given time. And we do see in the United States today, where on a state by state basis, states where Republicans are stronger, they tend to be drawing the lines to benefit Republicans, and in states where Democrats are stronger, they draw them to benefit Democrats.
And one of the, so as an example, you could imagine a hypothetical state with 60% Democrats and 40% Republicans. And if that would sort of lead you to think that if you had a fair drawing of the districts, roughly 60% of the House seats would end up held by Democrats and 40% held by Republicans. Talk to us about how you can draw districts such that you would not end up with that ratio.
Well, it's actually what's made gerrymandering such a problem today as opposed to 200 years ago is that we have computer software that can do it in a remarkably efficient way. Literally, they can know, and of course, that gets down to all of the information that can be collected on people through marketing efforts and so forth on the internet. We can know what kinds of magazines people subscribe to. We can know all sorts of things that tell us this person is more likely a Democrat, this person is more likely a Republican. And these computer programs can literally draw lines around houses, down streets, ignoring blocks in such a way that they basically ensure that the person who represents that district is not going to have significant opposition from the other party. And that's not good for society. It leads to a case where, as it's been said many times, the politicians are choosing the voters rather than the voters choosing the politicians. And that is to a great extent happening because of this very sophisticated computer software that uses very sophisticated algorithms to do its job.
So in our imaginary 60% Democratic, 40% Republican state, you could take those 60% Democrats and cram them into some smaller percentage of the districts, which would still have in the popular vote, maybe for these House seats, 60% of the votes going to Democrats, but you would end up with far fewer than 60% of the seats held by Democrats. That's generally the idea, is it not?
Yes, and it gets a little more complicated because, you know, if you think about it, the only way that you would end up with a perfect 60-40 split in the scenario you came up with is if those people were distributed pretty equally
right
in the geography of the state. But what happens is, and this is one of the arguments that's used against redistricting reform, is when you have certain urban areas, we're tending to live around like-minded people. So we tend to have urban areas where Democrats concentrate and rural areas where Republicans concentrate. Those rural areas are more spread out. So in a lot of those Democratic urban districts, you're not going to have a 60-40 Democratic split. You're going to have perhaps a 70-75% Democratic base. And so that's going to be fewer Democrats in other districts. So it doesn't create a perfect situation. Here in Virginia, we've had statewide Democratic officials elected consistently through this decade. We haven't had a Republican statewide official elected since 2009, and yet our House of Delegates is 2/3 Republican, 66 seats out of 100.
You alluded to big data being able to tell us, based on different characteristics that someone might have, whether they're more likely to be a Democratic or Republican voter. One of these indicators, mathematically speaking, is also race. And courts have ruled that racial gerrymandering is unconstitutional. But how can you draw the line as to what constitutes definitive racial gerrymandering versus tying districts to some other characteristics that underlying that, certainly race may still persist? I mean, it seems like a very complex gray area, does it not?
Well, it is. And what they have to do is they have to try to measure intent, to look at what the intent of the legislature is. Because under the Voting Rights Act, we actually want to have some majority-minority districts so that we encourage the ability for minorities to be elected to Congress and so forth. But what happens is you're not supposed to be able to take the racial data in order to pack districts. We have a situation where what's happened is, because there's a perception that the minority voters are more likely to be Democrat, what Republican legislatures are doing is they're packing as many minorities into that one Democratic majority-minority district as possible, more than they need to. And what that does is that assures that the 3 or 4 districts that surround it are going to go Republican. So that's what happens in a packing situation. So the idea is that, yes, under the Voting Rights Act, for a very laudable goal, you are supposed to take race into account to some extent, but it's not supposed to be your primary factor.
Let me remind you, we've been speaking with Bill Oglesby, who's an assistant professor at Virginia Commonwealth University, also the producer and director of the documentary GerryRIGGED, Turning Democracy on Its Head. Let's pause there. We're going to pick it up tomorrow with Bill and talk about how bad is national gerrymandering at this point in the United States. Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you, David.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Donald Trump's recent attempt to pander to black people has imploded in endlessly hilarious fashion. There's been a bunch of talk on social media about a white woman holding up a sign at Trump's Florida rally. It seemed like a campaign rally that said "Blacks for Trump," okay? And we have pictures of the individuals involved here. And there's this woman standing behind Trump. You can't exactly see, but most of the people holding these Blacks for Trump 2020.com signs were black people, but there was this white woman there as well, okay? And Trump even mentioned them at the rally, saying, "I love the signs behind me, Blacks for Trump. I like the signs. You watch, those signs are great." So clearly what happened here is the Trump team thought, hey, there's black people here who appear to support Trump. Let's put them right on stage so that they're visible on TV and it'll help us in some way, right? Maybe we'll appear less racist or whatever. Standard thing. Democrats do this as well. Republicans do it. You're strategic in selecting who's on stage behind you during a rally, all right? Also getting buzz on social media was this guy that in the picture, there's a green arrow pointing to. The white woman with the Blacks for Trump 2020.com sign was with a black man wearing a shirt that said, "Trump and Republicans are not racist. Gods too. gods2.com. Gods2.com redirects to this man's personal website. Here's the problem, and here's the implosion. The entire Blacks for Trump 2020 thing is absolute and total unhinged insanity that makes Alex Jones and InfoWars seem like pretty rational purveyors of news and analysis. If you go a few days ago, if you went to blacksfortrump2020.com, it would automatically redirect you to a website called honestfact.com. Now you don't get redirected automatically. You actually have to click a link that says click below to enter. So you go to blacksfortrump2020.com and it takes you to a website. You hit a click to enter button and it takes you to honestfact.com. We have a picture of the website. It's absolute and utterly insane. I mean, there's just no shortage of crazy stuff. It turns out that the man in question is Michael Simonet. He's a former member of a violent black supremacist cult from the 1980s called the Nation of Yahweh, which has been connected to extortion and arson, 14 murders. The group allegedly required members to kill a white person as part of their initiation. And after the Nation of Yahweh was dissolved, Simonet was charged with 2 brutal murders in the 1990s, one involving stabbing a man in the eye with a sharp stick. He was never convicted. And he's since accumulated 4 other felony charges associated with this new, it's sort of a religious movement. If you go to honestfact.com, it's filled with religious quotes, has not been convicted. He now goes by the name Michael the Black Man and has become an anti-gay preacher and musician. And we've got an image of his YouTube channel. He puts up long-form talks on YouTube. Some of these, as you can see here, include tirades comparing Hillary Clinton to the biblical whore of Babylon, believes that Hillary Clinton is in the KKK, believes Obama's the Antichrist, told the Miami New Times that Obama's backing of child support would be the end of free black men. Now, here's what's even more nuts, Pat. This wasn't even the first time he was at a Trump rally. He's been to multiple Trump rallies, and visibly so. And Rick Santorum actually had him open up a 2012 campaign rally where he played completely unlistenable jazz and went on a rant about Democrats being Nazis. He's also praised Glenn Beck, which, quite frankly, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't seem like a big deal compared to all this other stuff. Wow. Can you imagine a bigger implosion at what was really broadly a weird event, wasn't it?
Yeah, the whole story just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, why is Donald Trump even still holding campaign rallies? He's been in office for a month now. And, you know, the website name, Blacks for Trump 2020, you really have your eyes set on 2020 this early? It's even too early for Democrats to be discussing that.
You couldn't possibly script something this absurd, and Trump's attempt to pander to minorities explodes in his face. Of course, most people will never hear about this to begin with, but endlessly hilarious. I mean, at every step, just so boneheaded that even the pandering implodes in such a funny and harebrained way. I have to admit, I love it. I mean, when I went to I saw it, and then I just said, well, let's see what this is. Blacksfortrump2020.com. Boom. I mean, just conspiratorial, unhinged, lunatic nonsense promoted on stage at a Trump event.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder, too, how well these people were vetted, because if they're going to put up signs that advertise for a website, I mean, you wouldn't expect someone with, like, the President of the United States to have to deal with that sort of thing. The Secret Service should be on top of that.
Or you would think that somebody on Trump's team would just say, hey, I've got a smartphone. Let's go to blacksfortrump2020.com and just see what it is, and maybe we pull those people off of the stage. Clearly didn't happen. Our story on Donald Trump's reading level has gone viral in France. Multiple websites, news magazines, and TV shows using our clips to talk about the story in France. There's a show called C'est à vous, just the letter C, right? Apparently quite popular. Check out my mug on the screen behind them in the clip we're about to play for you. Something about this is funny. When they start talking about the clip, they put a picture of me up on the screen where I'm just grinning, and it's completely just sort of out of place in the story that they're talking about. But it's hilarious. Here's a little bit. If you don't understand French, the only thing you might pick up on is when they say my name in French. But it's very funny. Check it out.
Donald Trump, c'est lire. Question pas aussi farfelue qu'il ne paraît. Non. Vous allez voir. Évidemment qu'il sait lire. Il sait déchiffrer les mots. Sa propension à tweeter le prouve. Mais est-il capable de lire et de comprendre parfaitement de longs textes? C'est un journaliste américain qui pose la question. Il s'appelle David Pakman. Il a exhumé une vidéo assez gênante pour Trump. Trump est face à un juge qui lui demande simplement de lire face caméra un document et de dire ce qu'il en comprend.
Donald Trump can comfortably read the written English language. I mean, like English written on pages. I genuinely think, after reviewing a bunch of videos and comments and evidence yesterday, that Donald Trump may barely be able to read.
Would you be able to read this section and tell us what your understanding of it is?
I mean, do you want me to read it? It's long.
It is long.
It's very long. I don't have my glasses. I mean, this is such small writing. Let me try. Let me just do it.
All right, I have to place on the record a hearty objection.
Il invoque les lunettes. Certains disent on n'a jamais vu Donald Trump avec des lunettes.
Non, écoutez, notre confrère américain, hein, là, je crois, pousse un peu loin. Je crois tout simplement qu'il était gêné de lire les termes du bail en public. C'est une hypothèse que j'avance.
If you're only listening to that, another really great moment is when they're playing the clip of me talking about it, they go to a reaction shot of the panel that's discussing this, and they seem hugely entertained by the entire thing.
And they're also just completely confused because, I mean, I'm sure they probably do understand English or can read the subtitles there, but with the content of what's going on, the American president can't read. I mean, that's pretty
perplexing.
Bizarre.
Absolutely. Yeah. Also on a program called 20 Minutes, 20minutes.fr is the website. The story also coming up in France. His advisors have now also said Trump avoids reading any report or briefing that he finds to be too lengthy, and he will often just glance at the first page without even making it evident whether he understands what's on the page. I recently saw this interview with Saturday Night Live's Pete Davidson.
So during like the table read, he like, I'm not going to say this. I think I'm going to say it the way I want to say it.
His lawyer clearly doesn't want Trump to do any reading out loud.
Would you be able to read this section and tell us what your understanding of it is?
Objection.
Yeah. Also in a weekly French news magazine based in the lovely second arrondissement of Paris called L'Obs. I'll just put up a screenshot of this article for you, and also a written piece about it. I like it. I like the David Pakman Show with French subtitles. It really gives it a whole new vibe, doesn't it?
I always love it when the show gets international notoriety because right. They're on the outside and can kind of laugh at the things going on in our country.
We laugh to avoid crying. They laugh because they're laughing.
Yeah, they're more removed from it. I mean, we're more in a dangerous situation, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So yes, the Can Trump Read story all over French media, and great stuff. We have a voicemail number. It's 219-2-DAVID-P. Take a listen to this voicemail that came in.
So you're worried that lying to the FBI is a felony. Well, lying under oath to Congress is also a felony. That's what Hillary did. You didn't seem to have any concerns with that. You're okay with that.
Yeah. Pat, how long is but Hillary's emails going to be a defense during the Trump administration? We're a month in. Okay, we're 3 months out from the election. We're a month into the Trump presidency. For how long are people going to be saying, but Hillary's emails? Probably for 4 years.
Probably the entire Trump presidency, because during Obama's administration, we would point out the horrible things that George W. Bush did, and they kind of passed that off too. Like, Obama's the president now. Move on with it.
Yeah. Podsurvey.com/Pacman. Please help us out. This will take you under a minute to fill out, and it will be really useful to us in talking to potential David Pakman Show advertisers. Podsurvey.com/PAKMAN. Check it out and participate. It really won't take long. On the bonus show today, what's the bonus show, you might be asking? Great question. Every day we do the regular show. It's an hour. But then we do another show. It's called the bonus show, and it's for our paid subscribers that support the production of the show at davidpakman.com/membership. We have a coupon code if you want to sign up. It's iVoted17. By all means, have at it. On the bonus show today, Uber has hired Eric Holder to investigate claims of sexual harassment. I have some stories from friends about Uber driver sexual harassment, which I will tell on today's show. Does Pat have stories of sexual harassment involving Uber? We will find out. Don't tell us, Pat. We will find out on the bonus show. Are DC Trump supporters favoring a drink called Fireball? It is a vile and disgusting drink, which apparently shares an ingredient or two with antifreeze. We'll talk to Pat about whether he's tried Fireball on today's bonus show. Don't answer that question either, Pat. And also, NPR has created a team devoted to covering President Trump's conflicts of interest. This makes a lot of sense because the conflicts of interest are so significant that you probably need a team to cover Trump's conflicts of interest. We will be talking about all of those stories and more on the bonus show. If that sounds good, sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. That is the #1 funding source for the show, and it comes with great member benefits, including access to the bonus show and lots of other cool stuff. You can get a major discount off of membership by using the coupon code IVoted17 when you sign up. I will also just tell everybody who has taken the general David Pakman survey at davidpakman.com/survey. We are tabulating all of the results. Pat has brought in a series of protractors and Texas Instruments graphing calculators and stuff to get all the results tallied. And we are going to have the interesting feedback we received from the audience on the show for you very, very soon. So thanks to everybody who took that survey. podsurvey.com/Pakman for the news survey. This is now a survey show. We basically just do surveys and report on surveys. I'm kidding. After this survey, we're done with surveys. Please take it. Talk to you on the bonus show.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.